It's 2030. You scroll TikTok on your phone while waiting in line at the midnight premiere of the summer's biggest movie, Skibbity Toilet. In your befuddled, baffled, and battered brain, one question briefly flutters through your consciousness. How did we get here? Okay, so lock in is the new trendy term of the day. Everyone's trying to lock in. You got music made to help you lock in. Some guy literally locked himself into a room to reach peak lock in, and I don't know if that worked. I should check that out. For those who are not terminally online, or let's be real, less terminally online, locking in basically means to focus and grind and other words that hustle bros use to describe their daily lives. The way I see it, there's two kinds of locking in. There's the day to day lock in, like consistency, and then the moment to moment lock in, which is like a steady state of focus, a flow state, if you
So
will.
that's it. What, we some kind of
Flow state.
I mainly want to talk about the second type because you kind of need that to have the first. Like, if you're not managing that moment to moment lock in, that 10 to 15 minutes of flow state, you obviously can't build up a streak of locking in. I'm also going to stop saying locking in now because it's starting to lose all meaning. I don't know what I'm saying. So, yeah, despite being a cool new term, it essentially boils down to consistent flow states. And flow state itself is also just a fancy term for focus. I mean, you can look at the graph and be like optimum stress, optimum stakes, blah blah blah, but it boils down to focus. Optimum focus, that's it. And this is something that we used to do pretty easily, I think, just by virtue of there being basically nothing else to do. When I was a kid, after like 7 p.m., there was nothing good on TV. Half the channels were out for the night, and the other half were playing the same Tom and Jerry reruns that they played in the 90s. I was almost grateful for the opportunity to do my homework. Granted, in those days, that involved like writing a few sentences and drawing a pretty picture, but I digress. These days, though, every waking second you have to resist the urge to open up your information box and bombard your brain with sights, sounds, and opinions so varied, fast paced, and stimulating that they may literally erode the part of your brain responsible for locking in. Even if I was given the same homework I had in year 2 today, it would probably take me longer to do, unless I was like really locked in, like into a room and handcuffed to the desk for good measure. We all know our attention spans are cooked. We all joke about it. I'm joking about it in this video, or at least attempting to. But beyond the individual effects of this, consider the wider cultural ramifications. Basically, every song, video game, movie, book you admire was made by individuals locking in for a long period of time, day in and day out, often for little or no compensation. Charles Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol in only 6 weeks. Eminem wrote Kill Shot in 13 minutes. You know what those two have in common? That's right, they both used their creative talents to escape poverty. And secondly, they both knew how to lock in. We know that in this day and age, large media corpos only respond to one thing: money. Any semblance of care for the art has disappeared. This is why we get a shitload of crappy remakes while good shows get cancelled. It's all about the money, money, money. Forget about the creative integrity. Now, what happens when audiences become unable to lock into a feature length movie? I mean, did you see what Logan Paul had to say about Oppenheimer? Side note, I know some people in real life who said this as well, and I literally don't get it. I don't know how Nolan pulled it off, but that movie was filmed like a trailer. It was paced really well for the runtime. Anyway, once the typical movie becomes too boring for people and hence makes less money, studios will start to make movies that simply prioritize keeping your attention over achieving any sort of artistic purpose. There's a couple of ways we can see this already happening. Firstly, it kind of feels like popular media is leaning into this with the whole joke a minute thing that you see pretty often now. The MCU is the most common example of this, but I also heard that The Last of Us Season 2 had a similar problem with the jokes undercutting the tension, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know how true that is. I might disagree with that point and enjoy this style of media, which is fair enough, but a much better example of this happening is Netflix. So with Netflix, we can see this happening in a much more intentional way. Have you noticed that a lot of Netflix content is just kind of trash? Well, that's partially by design. Apparently, Netflix has been telling their writers to ensure that content is second screen enough to keep people watching. That involves things like protagonists loudly describing what they're about to do, so that viewers who have the show on in the background can follow along. Like, what? Can you imagine a Netflix version of Infinity War?
You should have gone for the head.
By the way, I'm gonna snap my fingers now. Jesus Christ, soon enough they're not gonna need the audio described option at the cinema, because that'll be the default. So that's the media side of things, but this can also bleed into our relationships. Take fubbing. Fubbing is a kind of a very 2010s term, back when we were all a little more wary of our internet usage, and 19 hours of screen time was not just the subject of a self deprecating joke, but cause for serious concern. But for those of you who don't know, to fub someone is to snub someone with a phone. It's checking your phone while someone's talking. And as you might expect, this is a very bad thing to do on like every metric, but it's unfortunately pretty common. It's a vicious cycle, a contagious disease. If you get fubbed, you're more likely to fub, It makes sense. I've done it, you've done it. We all gotta do better. I realize I've kind of stretched the definition of locking in here to a more general sort of attention span and self control type discussion, but I do think the two are very related. If we can't even pay attention to movies, to everyday conversations, how can we hope to lock in for real on God when there's actually a difficult task to be done, like studying or going to the gym consistently or anything like that? It's like a pyramid. If you can't do the easy stuff at the bottom, you got no shot at doing the difficult things on top. And if we as a society end up unable to do these things at the bottom, then we're looking at a lonely future with Skibbity Toilet, the feature film, playing in theaters. Take some time away from the scroll. Go outside, and whatever you're doing, whether that's watching a movie or catching up with a friend, do it properly. Lock in. Okay, so for anyone who did end up watching this video, thank you for watching. Also, little bonus fun fact is I was looking into the marshmallow test. So, for people who don't know, that's the experiment they conducted at Stanford University about delayed gratification, where some kids were told basically they could eat a marshmallow now or they could wait and get two. I was looking into that because there was going to be a section about that in the video, but apparently they tried it again with a lot more kids. I didn't know that when they first did it, there was only like 60 kids, 90 kids, something like that. But they tried it again with a much larger cohort and controlled for other factors such as socioeconomic factors and the household environment. And they found that the effect that they found in the first study was like way overstated when repeated with a larger sample. What was more of a factor rather than the how long the kid waited was their parents' level of education and obviously their home environment. So that's something that's quite interesting. I was always told that that was sort of like a landmark experiment in psychology, but the sample size was like surprisingly really small. So that's a little fun fact. Thanks for watching. Bye.